it's very well run. And I know a lot of people, this is a mom and pop deal, 100%. However, I see people talk about the mom and pop deals where they want them run down and trashed and stuff. I'm going to be honest, this thing was run like a gem. He had this thing very well run for being no online presence with websites. He took every incoming call or anything he did was all him. So the fact that he ran this, I actually was very intrigued by that. From the why I like the asset class so much is it's a business too. I love the leverage component. My time is leveraged, my property is leveraged, my technology, everything is leveraged. So, which is interesting because I never could scale that in rehabbing houses. I could never really scale that in wholesaling. Honestly, I could, at this point, I feel like I could probably take like a vacation to Europe for 30 days. I would still have to be involved, but I would have never been able to even consider anything in the stuff I was doing in real estate before.
Jeremy and Maryann Vlasic, how are you guys doing?
Doing well.
Doing well.
How are you?
I'm blessed. I get to, obviously we have a relationship, and I'll kind of set the stage for everybody that's watching and listening. But selfishly, whenever I interview somebody, inevitably, I always walk away with at least several nuggets and things that help shape me as a better person, father, husband, storage owner, entrepreneur. And so you guys we've had the benefit of having a friendship for, Jeremy, I don't know, man, how long has it been? At least 5 or 6 years, if not longer?
Yeah, at least maybe even a little longer.
Maybe a little longer. So yeah, I met Jeremy and Maryann in a mastermind that we were a part of with an organization called Life in Air, which I don't want to speak for them, but has had a big impact on my life. And so I met Jeremy, Maryann, and a bunch of really other good people. And then we had maintained a relationship. We kind of lost touch for a bit. And I remember Jeremy had reached out to me randomly one day on, I think it was Facebook Messenger, asking me about self-storage and basically sharing that he was interested in getting involved. Now, so you have a little bit of background. Jeremy and Maryann had experience in real estate. They've done their fair share of real estate deals. And I want to kind of dive in here and bring you guys into the conversation at this point. What was it that got you interested in storage, and how long were you thinking about getting involved in this asset class?
A good question. I'm a very slow learner at times. So actually, when I met you, and there's a bunch of other people, and you guys were constantly talking about self-storage, but at the time, and this sounds odd, but I didn't pursue that because business was going so well with rehabbing houses. It was really hard to imagine stopping something that had a ton of success, a ton of momentum. It was like a well-oiled machine. It was throwing cash at me. So it's hard when that happens because I had an interest in self-storage, but it wasn't, the opportunity may not have been right. And to be quite honest, God is a major part of our lives, and he talks directly to me at times and tells me to do things. And this was very ironic because I was scrolling through Facebook, and not that I'm a major Facebook user, but I do it usually daily, but not like all day. Anyway, I saw you were on it was really an ad, Alex, but I didn't even listen to the ad because God came in at that time and he said, contact Alex and tell him you want to learn how to do self-storage. And I'm very obedient when God's that direct, and I did what he told me to do. And that's how I got reconnected and how we joined the group.
And I can piggyback with a short answer on that, though. Alex, he's been talking about self-storage for probably 10 years. And again, we just talked about this the other night, and I said, I think the timing just wasn't right then. Yeah. And now it was. And obviously, with how God has orchestrated everything, from even us just connecting with the Storage Wins community, clearly the timing is right now. And I feel like we're kind of walking where God wants us.
Yeah. One of the things that inspires me so much about both of you is how you lead with your faith and how you always give God all the glory and credit, not just for your success in storage, and we'll talk about that, but the role that God's played in your life. I mean, it's very clear and evident to me. And maybe I have an unfair advantage in that, like, I've known you for years, but it's very clear and evident that you are who you are and that faith is your foundation. That's your North Star. And there are a lot of people out there that have faith, but maybe don't openly share it. In some cases consciously, in other cases maybe unconsciously. Clearly, that's not you guys. And I remember when you got your first storage facility under contract. So you joined. I remember when you joined our community, because I was thinking, like, Jeremy and Maryann are great. Like, I think they fit the culture, exactly what we're striving towards building in terms of the people that we bring in. And I believe you joined on August 4th. And then you sent me a text message, and we had been communicating a little bit prior to that, but basically 31 days later, you sent me a text message and you guys were like, we're under contract on our first facility for $1 million. And the reason I share that story is because I reached out to you and I said, hey, I would love to put a spotlight on you guys and essentially interview you because A, it would be inspiring for everybody in the community. B, there's always lessons learned. We can extract so much wisdom from people's wins as well as the lessons learned. And I don't know if you remember your response, Jeremy, and Maryann, I don't know if you were on that call or not, but Jeremy, you basically said, Alex, I'm happy to do whatever you want or need as long as I can give God the glory. And I remember in that instance, like I felt like literal chills on my body. Because I have very much been, I don't even want to call it a season, but for a while now, I have been praying and thinking and asking, like, I feel like storage is a vehicle, it's a tool. And how can I use this platform, this community that God's given me, because I'm just a steward of it, to amplify his message, to share. And when you said that, it was like, it was serendipitous, it was a God incident, it was perfect timing, because it was like validation that, hey, there's something happening here. And I don't claim to know all the answers. I'm still in the process of trying to hear and listen and discern. But anyway, you may or may not know that, but it impacted me when you said that. And obviously I was like 1,000%, like, of course, because God is very much a part of my life and he's the center and focus of everything we do. So I'll kind of pause there because I don't even know if you knew that, but when you shared that, it really impacted me. On a deep level because of everything I just shared.
Because God works in amazing ways. We could have put that together ourselves, right?
And that is true. That's where the reason I give God all the glory is because I couldn't do it on my own. And I'll even share, I mean, I know this doesn't, I'm glad this isn't an underwriting call because this is probably not what you want to hear on an underwriting call. But before I move forward with anything, I ask God, do you want me to buy this facility or not?
Yeah.
And if he says no, I don't buy it. If he says yes, I buy it. And when we bought the first facility, God's fingerprints were all over that. And when I showed up, I spent 4 hours with the sellers, and we may have talked about self-storage for 10 minutes. So actually, when I was driving there, and it was about an hour and a half to that facility, God told me, don't worry about Jeff, that's the seller, and don't worry about his wife. Trust everything they say. They are a believer, and everything they say is true. You don't have to second guess it. And I want you to do this. Well, when I mean, even today, we're still friends with Jeff and Susan. And Jeff tells me all of the time what a blessing we were to him and what a blessing this facility was to him because it allowed him to pay his bills and allowed him to minister. I mean, we've got scripture up on the sign at our facility. And my plan is we've had really cold, bad weather, but I plan on putting scripture on every building. So like, this is not about me. And the only reason I got this deal is because of God and just being obedient to what he tells me to do.
Yeah. Well, there's so much to unpack here that I'm kind of kicking myself for saying this was going to be 30 to 45 minutes or so, but I'll do my best here. God's guiding the conversation. There's a lot I want to get into. I want to put a pin in that, and I'm going to circle back to it, okay? Before you you just talked about and you shared several instances in which you're obedient. You hear something from God, you act and you listen. That's its own conversation and podcast. I feel like it could be, because a lot of people struggle with that. And at times, I feel like I've struggled with that. It's interesting. Sometimes when I pray, I'm now viewing it through the prism of, am I asking God to bless decisions I've already made? Or am I asking for God to instill in me his desires and then me just be following obedient? So that very much resonates with me. But what I wanted to ask is, there's going to be a lot of people listening, regardless of where their faith lies or lack thereof, that want to get into storage and have a lot of doubt, have a lot of fears, frustration, uncertainty takes over. Clearly, I don't want to say clearly, it doesn't sound like that was the case for you. And if it was, you acted in spite of that. What words of encouragement or advice would you share with anybody watching and or listening that has been thinking about storage for a while, wants to pursue this, but is stuck in confusion? Whether that's because the technical aspect of it, they don't know how to find it and analyze it, or maybe they have a mindset issue around the funding and the financing, or maybe they're just paralyzed by the thought of getting involved in a bigger asset and making a big mistake, losing a bunch of money. I mean, those are some of the reasons that hold people back. What would you say to them?
Well, I'm going to jump in because I think part of the reason we didn't move forward years ago is because of that fear aspect. Because everything was going so well, doing regular real estate, flipping houses. So it was a fear of, man, do you stop what's providing for our family and take on something new? And so I think fear held us back. So fear I think it's a natural feeling that we all have. And if we weren't a little afraid, then there's probably a bigger problem there. I mean, I think that's when we have to lean into God and trust we're making the right decisions and really trust our guts and our instincts. But I think it's okay to be fearful. But I also think that's when you surround yourself with people who have been there before and you sit on the shoulders of giants and you let them guide you. And that is what we were able to find with this group.
I will piggyback on that. The fear is because you haven't done it before, not because it hasn't been done. It's because you personally have not done that. So what a coaching group does, and specifically your group, Alex, is there are people that have walked before you that when you're freaking out can just be like, hey, just chill out. This is normal. That is totally normal. Or if it's not normal, they'll let you know that too. But I really think the benefit of a group is that. So you're expanding on other people's experience, their knowledge, their expertise. So that is the absolute benefit of a mastermind or a group. And even on top of, when you talk about fear, I had fear at times. I mean, there were a couple bumps in the road. We bought a 185 unit facility and didn't have one email address for one tenant, and it was 94% occupied. There was just, they're paying cash. We're trying to convert people over. There was a lot of times I had fear. Ironically, out of the blue, the seller, and I had no idea that he knew. Oh, well, I had never told him this, but one day I'm like, man, I was kind of freaking out. And he sent me, this is how God works too. He sent me a YouTube video, and it's from 1982, which I was like, man, I was fairly young at that point. But it was Michael W. Smith, and it said Strong and Courageous is a song, and it is a Christian song. And Jeff said, Jeremy, keep plugging along. Now, he had no clue that I was freaking out at that moment. It made such an impact that my kids now know that song because we play it, which it's a little cheesy. If you want to listen to like a synthesizer and stuff like that, that's your go-to. But, that's just where God soothed us too. So between God, experience, a group, all of that removes a lot of the fear.
Yeah. I'm so glad to hear you say that, because courage is acting in not in the absence of fear, but in spite of fear, right? Like we're human, so we're all going to feel fear at some point. I remember almost a decade ago before I recorded my first podcast, I had some fear. How was I going to sound? What stupid thing was going to come out of my mouth? How was I going to look? And, here you are almost 10 years later. And now it's like you just wake up. It's like brushing your teeth. You could just hop in. And so we all experience fear, but there's healthy fear and then there's unhealthy fear. And I love the fact that you said, hey, not only did we listen to God, number one, but number two is we found the right community of people that we could lean into. A big aspect of it, Jeremy, Maryann, that I know that we talk a lot about is the importance of relationships, like real relationships that happen inside of storage wins. I want to be crystal clear for everybody listening and watching that going under contract on your first storage facility literally 31 days after joining the community is not typical. That is not normal, quote unquote. That doesn't usually happen. It happened very fast. Number one, you know why? Who we're giving credit to? God. Number two, Jeremy, to your credit, because when we onboard somebody into the community, we always make 2 or 3 connections because I understand how important relationships are in community. And man, again, another instance in where God had his hand and fingerprints all over it, because we got you connected with Kenny and you guys just immediately hit it off. And I don't want to tell your story, but he had the right opportunity that wasn't too far from you. And so I'll let you guys take it over from here.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of a funny story too, because I will name drop this guy, but there's another person that does self-storage, and I like his book, AJ Osborne. He wrote a great book. He is well versed in it. His concept is how I try and run every business or anything I do, which is be the bear. And he said when you're fishing in a stream, he's from Idaho, so when you're fishing for trout in a stream, you can throw in one line with one lure to catch one fish and work and have to, make it perfect. Or he said you watch the grizzly bears and the bears, and they sit upstream and they wait. And the fish come to them and they just catch them out of the air. And he said, everything you do, be the fit or be the bear. And I love that concept because that's really all. I mean, whenever you're networking with anybody, you're just creating the bear relationship, right? So Kenny has the deals because he does a lot of activity. So I just tell him what I'm looking for. And if it works, then that works great for him and that works great for me. And it is being the bear. So that leverage component of networking and letting people know, and really specifically letting them know. I've seen people send over buy boxes that say things like, well, I'd consider anything, 10,000 to 1 million square feet, but really I'd consider anything. They'll put stuff like that. I'm like, well, yeah, but I'm so confused now. I was very direct with Kenny, and one aspect that I do, and I haven't shared this with a ton of people, but God showed me, when I met with Kenny, I was like, man, I really like Kenny. He was just a really nice, down-to-earth guy. And God said, you know what, Kenny's going to bring you a deal near the Joplin, Missouri area. And I go, Well, this wasn't exactly in Joplin, but it's within about 30 minutes. And I mean, within a week, Kenny called me and said, hey, I've got this deal. And he even said, I don't know exactly where it is. It's kind of by Joplin. And that's what he told me. And I never shared with Kenny that God shared that with me. But I mean, that is how that happened. But really, the concept of trying to be the bear. So even mentioning the fear of self-storage, part of it is because you're not good at that because you maybe never done that. Well, is there a way to be the bear and redo that concept? And we always, in fear, we're always talking about what couldn't happen or what won't happen. But what if you bought a facility and it blessed your life and blessed for 50 years your family's life? I mean, what if that happened? I don't hear a lot of people talking about the fear of, what if my life has changed positively for the rest of my life and my family's life?
That's so true. And I think oftentimes people are so driven by the avoidance of pain and loss versus striving towards progress, goals, pleasure. And it's so true. I don't think I've ever heard, or at least not frequently, hey, this can completely change my life. But I always hear like, what if I mess up? Or they might use another colorful word, right? Maryann, from your perspective, because I believe, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I believe Jeremy was the one that was kind of spearheading some of the conversations with Kenny. Were you very much aligned and in tune with the fact of like, hey, this is happening pretty quickly for us, and when it does, we're going to act and move? Because look, God can line things up for you, but if you're not ready to listen, hear, and act, nothing's going to happen, right? Like, you still got to be faithful, obedient. You still got to take, I'm going to use something that I think resonated with you, massive imperfect action, right? You didn't have all the answers, and you didn't know what the due diligence was going to look like, but you still acted. And then you also knew that you had a group of people that you could lean on as well. From your perspective, were you in tune and aligned with Jeremy here, like every step of the way, or were you kind of battling some of your own things?
Oh, that's a good question. Jeremy has such amazing insight. So if he says, well, God said, I say, okay. I mean, if God said so, okay, I'm not here to argue with God or my husband. But I think it's important to note, Jeremy has an amazing skill set. When he meets with clients, I always say, like, he was my real estate agent before he was my husband. And so I learned from him how to talk to people when you meet with people on an appointment, how to sell things, how to negotiate. And he has a gift, a God-given gift to work with people. So when he went out on this appointment, he's like, hey, Kenny said I got to go look at it tomorrow. Does it work with the schedule? I'm like, sure, it works. Well, I knew after 3 hours that he didn't tell me he was on his way home. And after 4, I'm looking at my clock. I'm like, this must be a really, really great appointment because it's been a very long time. Yeah. So I knew that things were working well. I wasn't afraid to purchase the facility because I ran my own numbers. So I had spent time learning how to analyze a deal and see if the numbers work. And we crunched our numbers and we looked at it and it made sense. And so there was no reason to hold back. And I also, having been married to him for so long and buying real estate, he's just like, I'm buying a house today. So this was just like, we're buying a storage facility today. Not that it doesn't, I don't want it to sound so easy because there were definitely some hiccups and some learning curves. But sometimes when I find myself getting afraid of something, I'm like, it's okay. Yeah. It's okay to be afraid. We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out together, Yeah.
Can you spend a couple of minutes just talking about the actual deal itself? Like, I'm sure I always, as the host, I always try to put myself in the shoes of somebody listening. And I feel like at this stage of the game, like, I would want to know, okay, well, like, dude, tell me about the deal. Like, what does it look like? What attracted you to the deal? What do you think the deal could produce, either from a cash flow perspective or just upside and equity growth? Just to give us a synopsis of what you really liked about the deal and just the overall opportunity.
Yeah. Well, I can say a couple of things because he'll probably have more to add to that. First off, it's 185 units. It has warehouse space and also a house. And we'll talk about that a little bit because it's definitely changed our buy box after buying a facility that has a warehouse and a house on it. But my experience is how well it was taken care of by the prior owner. I mean, he did love that place and you could feel love there, and God's presence. It's a special place. And so it was so well taken care of. There was no reason to be afraid on that end. So we have 185 units. Most of it's gated. There's not a camera system up. So Jeremy's taking care of that. But you want to add he's got some plans for the warehouse area and stuff.
Yeah, it's around 34,000 square feet of storage. We don't have any surface op parking, although I guess we could do a little bit, but honestly, it's very well run. And I know a lot of people, this is a mom and pop deal, 100%. However, I see people talk about the mom and pop deals where they want them run down and trashed and stuff. I'm going to be honest, this thing was run like a gem. He had this thing very well run for being no online presence with websites. He took every incoming call or anything he did was all him. So the fact that he ran this, I actually was very intrigued by that. The other thing is it's about an hour and a half from our house. It's local. So that's always easier for financing. I've got relationships there with banks, all of that. So I did like the deal from that standpoint. Okay. I also love the fact that this deal had been under contract before, and it did not close with the prior buyer. Here's why that's not the part I love. What I love, though, is the guy had done a full phase one. He had done a full appraisal from a local lender, which we could reuse with lenders. So which saved us a lot of money, aggravation, time, everything else.
Okay.
Also, all of the paperwork had already been completed by the seller. So getting us that information was very easy and quick. That did streamline the process as well. But that's what I loved about it. The second component, though, is the owner. He is amazing. And we are good friends at this point. And he always helps us. He's willing to help. That I knew that he would do that, and he told me he would do that. That means a lot because he knows every tenant and the unit number still out of his mind. So if I ever call him and say, hey, we've got an issue with, he'd be like, oh yeah, 180, that's whoever.
So, and they'll do this, and he just knows.
Yeah.
It's great.
And then the third thing that was a huge appeal to me was the fact of the length of the tenancy. We have, of course, now we've converted to an online program. So we have 67 of the 147 units, or the 147 tenants. So some of them have multiple units. But of the 147, 67 of them had been there 2 years or longer. And we can even add maybe another 30 that have been there a year or longer to that number. And we have very low, like month-to-month turnover is incredibly low. So that was very appealing to me, incredibly appealing.
Yeah. I always share with people how storage, the product itself of somebody renting a storage unit is so sticky. And oftentimes people stay for well north of a year and a half, in some cases 2 years, especially if you if you run it with good customer service, you provide a safe, secure place with good lighting. That's what people care about, is they want a place to store their belongings, and it's going to be in a safe environment. And I have loved to see, selfishly, from my perspective, how you guys took a facility with no marketing, no online presence. And yes, and we'll talk a little bit about that. There was some hiccups and bumps along the way in terms of the transition and when you took over. But it seems like, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, you tell me, it seems like you're in a little bit of a different place today than you were 30, 60 days after you bought it. Is that the case or not?
That's fair. Yeah, that's a fair comment. I would say so. The transition to an online system was quite a challenge. But more than anything, it's kind of a glitch with the company that we used, and knowing it moving forward, I would do things differently. I've also brought it to their attention, like, hey, this kind of caused some issues. But it wasn't, we were able to work through it. It just took a lot of time. And like Jeremy shared, we have all these tenants without email addresses. So, I shared one time in one of our calls, I would do a part of due diligence, require those email addresses to be provided by the seller, because we still don't have all of our email addresses. So that has been a challenge. But now that we know how to run the system and play, it's fun. It's kind of fun to play with the system.
Yeah, and really that's the other thing about self-storage that why I like the asset class so much is it's a business too. So I don't think people focus on that enough. And business can be fun, right? It's an opportunity to be creative, to do marketing, to do all these fun things. But it also is real estate and is a hard asset too. So that from that standpoint, it is just a really unique asset. I love the leverage component. My time is leveraged. My property is leveraged. My technology, everything is leveraged. So, which is interesting because I never could scale that in rehabbing houses. I could never really scale that in wholesaling. I could never really figure out how to. Honestly, at this point, I feel like I could probably take like a vacation to Europe for 30 days. I would still have to be involved, but I would have never been able to even consider anything in the stuff I was doing in real estate before.
Yeah. Now, we're also talking, 4 or 5 months post-purchase at this point, more or less, give or take?
Yeah, we closed the beginning of November.
Okay, beginning of November, right. So I'm kind of like sheepishly smiling. And Maryann, I think you and I were kind of on the same wavelength, because I remember once you closed, you had some of these transition challenges. And I remember we hopped on a few calls, and I remember on our Storage Wins weekly community calls, we were talking about it. And you kept hearing from everybody who owns storage, things will quiet down and settle down, right? And I remember at one point you guys were like, I could tell, like you weren't hearing it. You were like, we're at the thick of it right now. Like, I don't see how it's possible. And by the way, I still don't think you're fully there, because you're only 4, 5, 6 months into it. Let's have a conversation come summertime, right? And then I believe you're going to feel like you can take the summer off, and because you have certain things dialed in. When you were going through that transition and some of the challenges, what role do you guys feel, and you can be 100% honest, what role did the community play? Was that helpful? And if so, how? Like, how was the community able to help you, either tactically or even if it was just from an encouragement and support perspective?
Well, I definitely think there was encouragement from the group that it will get better. Like, you're in the worst of it right now. It will get better. Yeah. But I also think there are some little questions that pop up that I can't call the help desk at the company and say, hey, what about this? But we could call someone in the group and say, how did you handle this situation or that situation? How did you handle tenant insurance? And how did your tenants respond to that when you were adding insurance? So being able to have people who've been there before answer those questions that come up was really helpful.
Yeah. And to have people's cell phones in the group is nice. I'm gonna be honest. There are 3 or 4 people that I call directly that own storage and that were operators at this point, and I did talk to them quite a bit. And like you said, sometimes they were, being a psychologist and trying to calm me down. Other times, they were coming up with tactical plays like a coach. So, and that is what I leaned on people in the group. And actually, Maryann mentioned earlier, walking on the shoulders of giants that have walked before us, which I'm a huge component, or I think that I'm a huge advocate of that idea. And that is a Gary Keller model. I read that 20 years ago when I started in real estate, and that's how lasting that is. And I still believe that. Leverage other people's experience, their time, and also they were just generous and kind.
Yeah. And that's because they're like you guys. And by the way, in the future, you guys are probably going to get a phone call from somebody who you have to talk off the ledge, who's like, I'm fearful, I'm concerned, or I have this challenge. And I can confidently say this because I feel like I know you both pretty well, that you're going to take the call and you're going to be there for them and you're going to support them and guide them. And I think that's the power of a strong community. It's everybody there, not just to learn, grow, and extract, but also to give, contribute. And that's one of the things I'm most proud of, in addition to the way God continues to show up in numerous ways. So that's so awesome. Well, you guys are now managing, operating that deal. I should have asked you this before, but we can always edit it out if you don't want it. But you guys are now under contract on your second facility. Is that right?
Yes, we close in 7 days.
Okay, so by the time that
I didn't know it was moved up. I'm like, such a thing.
So 7 days, obviously none of us have a crystal ball, but if everything goes as planned, then by the time that people are watching and or listening, you guys now hopefully own your second storage facility. You don't have to get into any details about location or anything like that, but how did this second one come about? And then how much easier or how different is it now going through it a second time versus the first time that you guys went through this process?
Yeah, so the one thing I'll say the most, though, is this one is already on the same software program. So I really like that, for sure. But Jeremy was able to do some creative financing on this deal, which I think is helpful. And I'll let him talk about it more. It's kind of his baby there.
Yeah, you know what, again, this was a mom and pop type of a facility. However, I will share something that I never hear anybody really talk about this. This is a smoking deal. We are getting 4% financing at 85% LTV. We're bringing in roughly 15%.
Okay.
And that is a brokered MLS deal. And people say all the time, oh, you got to go out and cold call and you got to do this. Everybody in the entire United States could have bought this deal. It was listed for sale. It even went under contract. So maybe that should be my motto. Whatever gets under contract, I just follow it till it falls out. I did make an offer right out of the gate when this hit the market. They said no. It went under contract. It fell out of contract. I came back and I made a fairly low offer. And the agent at this point, I could tell, was in a different position than the first offer I made. He did call back and said, they won't do that. Is there any way you can come up? And I said, I don't know. I don't think I didn't necessarily come up a lot, but would they consider owner financing? So that's through a real estate broker. That's a huge commercial broker. He didn't even have to call me back. Now we are dealing directly with the seller, and I highly recommend that. The broker just wants their money, and I don't even know that I've talked to him in 30 days probably. So we have the direct owner. We're talking to them. The transition's been a lot easier because of what Maryann said. And so we have all the email, we have all that input, and we have a 100% occupied facility day one out of the gate with incredible financing and cash flowing from day one.
Unbelievable. And I wanna put put a spotlight on something you said in case anybody missed it. You did say you're dealing with a commercial broker, and I know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask it for the benefit of everybody listening. Did you say this facility was listed on the MLS, as in the multiple listing service where houses and duplexes and condos and all that? Okay, so if you just started looking into self-storage, I don't want to say that that's not typical. That's probably just incorrect. Now, granted, it served its purpose. They were able to find the right buyer in Jeremy and Maryann. But usually a commercial asset like self-storage is listed on Crexy.com, LoopNet.com. It doesn't belong on the MLS. So the tip for you is if you have access to the MLS, set up a keyword search, and you want to put in anything that hits the MLS that has the words self-storage, storage, mini warehouse, mini storage, or any variation. Throw it into ChatGPT, and I'm sure it'll give you 20 different variations of that. Add that into your MLS keyword search so that you get notified anytime something pops up on the multiple listing service. If you don't have access to the MLS, I would say befriend a realtor and see what you're able to. Maybe they can set up the search for you. That could be a great way to get under the radar deals that, yes, anybody in the country could have bought that deal. But usually when people are on the MLS, they're not looking for self-storage facilities. They're looking for houses, duplexes, condos, etc. So I think it's a cool and sneaky way to get in contact with storage facilities. So that's pretty awesome.
It is. One other little trick that people can use that's really effective is I also pulled the expired listings and I called every one of those agents. I actually made 4 offers out of that. There were 60 properties that popped up in the entire state of Missouri. I streamlined that down to probably 12 to 15 that I liked. I called all of those and I did not buy any of them, but the fact is I talked to a seller that raised their hand, said, yes, I want to sell, and I made an actual offer. So, I don't know how many people are doing cold calling where people actually often don't want to sell and then you're trying to work angles, but 4 offers, like legitimate, fully underwritten, full offers. I thought that was pretty effective too.
Dude, that's pretty ninja. I don't even think I knew that or you shared that. So you pulled the expired listings off the MLS, obviously of storage facilities that were listed on the MLS. Yeah. And now you contacted the agent or the broker and started building a relationship with them. Amazing. Yeah. Amazing.
In fact, one of the brokers said, oh yeah, they don't want to sell, but you know what? And she gave me 2 names and I would have never gotten those names without calling the broker. And I made offers on both those properties.
That's so cool, man. That's so awesome. Well, guys, we're going to start to put a bow on this one. Something tells me, I could be wrong here, but my gut tells me, especially with the Storage Wins community call that we have coming up, there's about 33% of the members in our group are looking to wholesale their first storage facility. About 2/3, 67%, almost to the exact number, are looking to buy, own, and operate. There's something tells me there's going to be a lot more JVs, deal flow happening inside the group. And so hopefully deal number 3 comes from inside the community. That'd be pretty cool. And I think it's a great way to have everybody win. And one of the things that I want to give you guys credit for is, and this is a great tip for those watching and listening, Jeremy and Maryann always lead with value. And Jeremy, if I can share this and just jump in if I don't think you're gonna have an issue with it, but we had a conversation and you're like, hey, is it cool if I connect with people inside the community and just offer my help to get deals over the finish line, and I'll happily pay them whatever the wholesale fee is, provided it makes sense, of course. And I was like, dude, of course, like that's what it's all about. And I think it's a perfect example of, think about the resources, the skill sets. What are the things that you have that you can contribute and add value to potentially be a part of the deal? Maybe you're really, really good at finding deals or raising capital, or maybe you're just a gifted connector. There are skills, assets, and resources that you likely have that you can leverage to tap in and add value to other people like Jeremy and Maryann. Like they're actively I don't know if they're actively looking for the third now that you're about to buy the second, but if not right now, maybe in the next 6 months, you guys are actively looking for number 3. Or who knows, knowing you guys, maybe 31 days from now, you're under contract on deal number 3.
Hey,
I'm working angles, so the back office, Alex, I'm shaving a ton of that off. And if all this works like I think it is, I would probably buy as many as I could possibly buy that make sauce. So it would be unlimited. Yeah.
I also I always think of that movie, I think it was Moneyball, where they're like, you have to hit the ball to win the game. I mean, you have to hit the ball. And so we have to make offers to buy facilities. So you can't be afraid to make the offers. So, I mean, he's still making offers like all the time, and he's sending deals. Look at this one. I made an offer on this one. You have to be in the game playing and making offers, or else it doesn't come your way,
Yeah, and Alex, one of the things, and you mentioned about when I reached out to you about that, but and you talked about fear. So when you break down somebody that's never maybe done a deal or not done a deal in self-storage, their fear, they're all going to be similar. I don't have the money. Okay, well, we remove that fear because you're not buying the deal. You're just going to wholesale it. I don't know what I'm doing. Well, we've got a group that can help you. We'll help you. And I don't know how to talk to the seller. No problem. There's somebody in the group that I negotiated a deal for him, got it under contract, and just walked out. That's all I did. So I think when you're talking about all of that, the reason I said that is because the fear factor is removed at that point. I mean, if you just say, go find a deal, if it fits this buy box, we'll buy it. What possibly could you be fearful of at that point?
Yeah.
Right? The fear has been totally taken off the table.
That's perfectly said. If somebody, and let me ask you this, and this will be the last question I ask, well, maybe the next to last question. If somebody out there is on the fence, they're thinking about this, and they go find a deal, and they were to bring it to you guys or to somebody in our community, if it's actually a deal, give me a % that person's going to be able to close their first deal, provided it's a real deal and there's no hiccups in the process. And is it a pretty high probability that they can close their first deal even if they don't have money?
Oh, yeah, the money part, that's the biggest fallacy of all of it, actually, is the money part. It's all about the deal.
Yeah.
So if you've got a smoking deal, if you can't close it, then we would be happy to. No, I'm just joking. But that's the reality. If you can't close it or don't want it, somebody will close on it. So it's all about the deal.
Yeah. Awesome. Last thing I want to share with you. We started this conversation with the role that God's played in your business, obviously the role he's played in your life. And I realize, by the way, it's not lost on me that might turn some people off, and that's okay. Right? People will hear it or not hear it. They'll tune us up or they'll tune us out. And that's perfectly fine. It's just our truth. I want to I want to publicly acknowledge both of you for the way that you show up, the way that you openly share your faith, the way that you contribute and you give, and you do it from a place of authenticity. You can tell, and my BS meter has gotten pretty good over the years, the more grays that I get on me. You can tell when somebody is genuine and sincere. I wasn't going to say that, but there's a member in our community that was struggling on the acquisition side, and all of a sudden I hear, because he told me, he's like, dude, Jeremy got on the phone with him and like helped me negotiate the deal. And I wasn't even surprised in the slightest. And I think it's a testament and a credit to both of you, how you show up and give. And I think as a result, naturally that builds trust, that opens up more doors and opportunities. And it's just an awesome way to live and operate. And hopefully that resonates with people listening, that if you have the mindset of it's a zero-sum game, like in order for me to win, somebody has to lose, that's a faulty mentality. It's not sustainable, and it's not going to take you very far. And as cliche as it sounds, because our community is called Storage Wins, I truly believe, and I know that you guys believe, that it can be a win-win-win-win, like literally all the way around.
Absolutely.
Awesome, guys. Well, hey, listen, any parting words or thoughts or anything you want to share? I'll kind of give you guys the last word to put a bow on this thing.
Well, I have one. I'd like to reframe. So instead of winning or like winning a deal, I like the way I've really gone into every deal with it being a blessing. When Jeff said that, I thought, man, what a way to say that. I want every deal we do to be a blessing to the seller, a blessing to us, a blessing to the tenants, a blessing to the wholesaler. So that really is our focus. And I do think the more, and one thing I do want to say, I do want to pitch you some, Alex, as well, because you're one of the most sincere people. You're not the only person that does self-storage. I could have gone with 50 people online. Some of them were even nicer than you. No, I'm just kidding.
All right, I'll take it.
But you're so genuine and sincere, and your heart is in the right place. Where I don't, you mentioned about would I help everybody? The answer is probably not. If your heart's not in the right place, or if it's only about money or only about you, that's fine. I probably wouldn't be a part of it. But just a pitch for you too. You care so much and you give, and your heart's in the right place. And I've got an unbelievable discernment after meeting with thousands of people over the last 20 plus years, and it does matter. So specifically, if anybody's on the fence and they're like, well, I'm checking out some podcasts to see, hopefully at this point I haven't offended you with talking about God. So thanks for hanging in there the whole time with us. But I would highly recommend Storage Wins, because you guys, and it's leadership down, man. It always is.
No, thank you. I'll let that land on me. That means a lot. I appreciate the thoughts, the words, and grateful to have you guys in the community. And hopefully the reason that we did this is if there's just one nugget, one syllable, sentence, a thought, anything that may have touched you or inspired you, what I encourage you to do is act on it. It's this idea of speed of implementation. You're investing a resource that you can't get back, and that's time. And you just spent the last 45, 50 minutes with us. The way that you can thank us is by doing something with the information so that it impacts you, your family, your community. It blesses the seller. It blesses everybody that's involved in the deal. And that's what we want for you guys. We want to see you win, whether you're in the Storage Wins community or not. I think we all have an abundant mentality, and there's more than enough for everybody out there. It's a great asset class, and just don't let fear rob you of what it could do for you. I loved what Jeremy said about how could this change your life versus staying stuck in fear. So with that being said, make sure you're subscribed over on YouTube if you're watching us there, on Apple, Spotify, all those platforms. And with that being said, I look forward to connecting with you on the next one. Jeremy, Maryann, thank you so much, guys.
Yeah,
Thanks.
thank you.
Thanks.